We tend to think of museum as grand building of glass and steel, where history is neatly labeled and tucked behind climate control cases. But the truth is, the largest, oldest, and the most haunting museum on this planet doesn't have a front door or a ticket counter. It lies thousands of feet beneath the surface of the sea. The oceans doesn't just hold shipwreck and strange creatures. It is the final guardians of cities, palaces, and civilization that evaporated from our map centuries ago. Down there, in the eternal twilight of the abyss, time doesn't tick, it drifts. Massive stone gods stand with empty eyes, staring into a blue darkness that has remained unchanged for millennia. There's a specific kind of grandeur in this room, a heavy, beautiful melancholy that reminds us how fragile our empire truly are. While we build upward toward the cloud, the weight of the water has already claimed some of our greatest achievements, preserving them in the watery shroud where the sun cannot no longer reach them. Today, we are diving into the silence. We are leaving the noise of the surface behind to wake the ghosts of 10 world wonders that are currently sleeping in the heart of the oceans. These aren't just pie or rubble. They are echoes of the lost world, whispering story of glory, greed, and the ultimate power of the tide. Grab your gear. We are going deep. If you had sailed into the Caribbean in the late 17th century, the first place you would have encountered, and likely the first place you would have been warned about, was Port Royal. Located on a strategic sun-scorched spit of land in Jamaica, it was the beating, lawless heart of the New World, a city that functions less like a colonial outpost and more like a sprawling, chaotic monument to human excess. This was the wickedest city on earth, a vibrant, noisy metropolis where the smell of spilled rum and the clatter of Spanish gold formed a constant, intoxicating rhythm. It was a heaven for privateers like Henry Morgan and a playground for the world's most dangerous men, who traded their blood-stained spoil for silk, spice, and debauchery. In its spring, Port Royal was possessed as a dark, simmering grandeur, its brink tavern and crowded markets pulsing with an energy that felt absolutely invisible, as if the party would never and could never end. But beneath this veneer for invisible world, the city was dancing on a geological trap. The end did not come through a slow rotted time of the canons of a river empire. It was executed in the matter of minutes on the morning of June 7, 1692. At exactly 11:43 a.m., a massive earthquake tore through the island. But the destruction was far more terrifying than symbol-shaking, because Port Royal was built on the foundations of loose, whereas saturated sand. The vibration triggered a phenomenon known as liquefaction. In a heartbeat, the solid ground evaporated into a slurry, and the city's magnificent brick building began to sink directly into the earth as if the land itself has turned into water. Two-thirds of the city, roughly 33 acres of experienced real estate, simply slid into the Caribbean Sea as the ground swallowed people whole. A towering tsunami followed, sweeping ships from the harbor and depositing them into the middle of the remaining street, turning the wickedest city into a chaotic graveyard before the afternoon sun could even begin to set. Today, Port Royal lies in the murky, emerald silence of Kingston Harbor, slumbering beneath a watery shroud that has preserved its was a hunting, surgical precision. Because the city sank so suddenly, it became a perfect time capture of life in the 17th century, a submerged museum of the modern and the magnificent. Marine archaeologists have uncovered kitchens with pot still sitting on the hearth, self-filled with pewter plate, the body of beef that were ready for market when the world collapsed. Perhaps the most poignant discovery was a silver pocket watch found in the suit. Its gear had seized at the exact moment of impact, its hands forever frozen at 11:43. There is a profound, heavy melancholy, a sense of that cling to the ruined. The roar of pirate laughter has been replaced by the rhythmic pulse of the tide, and the gold that once drove men to madness now sits buried under centuries of sand and sea spawns. Looking at the Port Royal from the surface, it is impossible to ignore the tragic beauty of its fall. It stands as a silent masterpiece of storytelling, reminding us that the line between a thriving empire and a forgotten relic is as thin as single tremor of the earth. The city was one of the loudest, more vibrant places in the Americas, yet now its hold is buried in the dark. A white tide goes down where the statues of its vanity are slowly dissolving in the salt. Is in the ultimate testament to the fragility of our grandest design, a place where history was not written in book, but etched into the very floor of the oceans, waiting for the silent to tell its story. If Port Royal is the story of a city executed in the middle of a scream, then Palopetry is the story of a civilization that simply exhaled and drifted into an eternal sleep. Located just off the coast of southern Laconia in Greece, Palopetry does not offer the gold or the notoriety of pirate. Instead, it offers something far more haunting, the oldest urban echo in human history. To dive into the water is to leave the modern world behind and enter a bronze age dream that has been submerged for over 5,000 years. While other ancient sites are often just piles of tumbled stone and guesswork, Palopetry is a literal blueprint of humanity's first step toward urban living. It is a city of ghosts that was already ancient by the time the legendary heroes of the Trojan War were born, and it remains the most complete submerged town ever discovered. Floating through Pavlovsky is a surreal experience that evokes a profound melancholy. Unlike the chaotic ruins of Youngster City, Pavlovsky layout is perfectly, almost painfully, clear. You can trace the narrow street where merchants only once worked. Look into the courtyard where the children played, and see the foundations of two-story houses that were built with a sophistication that defied our primitive label. There is a haunting sorrow in seeing a stone threshold that a mother stepped over 5 millennia ago to greet her family. Now, carpeted in fine silt and green sea moss, they were not just shelter, they were homes, complete with waving rooms, gardens, and even complex drainage system that seeked a society that valued order and hygiene long before the Roman Empire was even a shadow on the horizon. The silence of Palopetri is perhaps its most powerful feature, because the water here is shallow and crystal clear. The sunbeam dances across the stone floor, creating a flickering light that almost makes the city seem alive again for a fleeting second. But the reality is far more somber. Scattered throughout the town are six graves, small stone-like tombs built directly into the foundations of the houses. This was a culture that kept their death close, living their daily life literally on top of their ancestors. Today, though graves are open to the sea, empty of their occupant but full of the weight of the age, it creates an atmosphere of secret isolation, a place where the barrier between the living past and the watery present has been completely eroded by thought. How does a city of such order and longevity simply slip into the pool of history? Geologists believe that Palopetri was not destroyed by a single cataclysmic event like a volcanic, but was instead the victim of the series of powerful earthquakes that caused the land to subside. It didn't fall, it was gently lowered into the embrace of the sea. This slow submergence is what preserved its grandeur so perfectly. The oceans didn't crush Palopetri, it simply claimed it, sealing it away from the destructive hands of land-drilling conquistadors and the slow rot of the wind. Palopetri stands today as a silent masterpiece of what we call the pre-literate world. Yet its stones speak with a clarity that book cannot match. It reminds us that we are not the first to believe we have conquered the earth, and it serves as a haunting reminder that the oceans has a much longer memory than we do. While the other wonders on our list were claimed by the slow erosions of time or a sudden wrath of nature, the story of Lodge Village is one of the deliberate, cold-blooded sacrifice in the name of the progress. On July 1st, 1958, a day usually reserved for celebrations in Canada, a siren wailed across the St. Lawrence River Valley, signaling the beginning of the end of 10 historic community. In a matter of hours, a massive controlled flooding turned the landscape into a watery grave, burying centuries of family history beneath the rising tide of the St. Lawrence Sea wave. This was not a tragedy caused by a shifting tectonic plate or a rising sea level. It was a human decision to erase the past to power the future. To dive into the water today is to experience a uniquely modern kind of profound melancholy, where the ruins aren't ancient stone temple, but the very homes, side-work, and gardens that people still alive today once called their own. The atmosphere of the lost village is defined by a haunting, surgical stillness, unlike the weathered stone of the Pavlov-Petri or a silt-covered tavern of Port Royal. These ruins feel startlingly familiar as you glide beneath the surface, you aren't met with the unrecognizable debris of a lost era, but with skeletal remains of the mid-20th century. You can see the distinct out like a paved road that leads to nowhere. Stone fence that one mark the boundary of broad family farm, and the concrete foundations of churches where generations were married and buried. There is a heart-wrenching beauty in seeing a row of apple trees, their branches now bare and petrified by the river current, standing in perfect formation like a ghost of an orchestra. These sights evoke a heavy sense of sorrowful longing, a reminder that they were not just structural, but a living, breathing, social fabric that was cut away in a single afternoon. The human cost of this project was staggering. Over 6,500 people were displaced, forced to pack their life into boxes while they watched the water slowly creep up their front porches. While some houses were physically lifted and moved to new ground, many were simply left behind to be consumed. There is a story of former residents who, years later, would take small boats out onto the river on quiet days just to peer through the water, trying to catch a glimpse of the chimney of their childhood home or the sidewalk, where they learned to ride a bike. This creates a bridge, a grip between the surface and the depth. The river didn't just drown the land, it drowned the collective identity of an entire region. It is a masterpiece of industrial, where the grand engineering fit on a seaway, a project that opened the heart of the continent to global trade, sits directly on top of the subtle remains of the quiet live-in replay. Today, the lost village serves as a silent, submerged monument to the pride of civilizations. On days when the water is clear and the sun hits the river at just the right angle, the shadow of the old building looks like dark stains on the riverbed, as if the earth itself refused to forget what was taken. The grandeur here isn't found in gold or marble, but in the sheer weight of the memory that remains trapped in the silt. It is a haunting lesson in the permanence of loss, even as the massive shift of the seaway saw overhead, oblivious to the world below their hearts. The lost village remained in their dark, watery sanctuary. They remain earth that's the most painful kind of evaporate, isn't when the city is lost to mystery, but when it is taken by choice, leaving behind nothing but a sidewalk in the dark and a story that only the river knows how to tell. If the other cities on our list represent the tragedy of war or accidents of nature, Bai represents the slow, exquisite drowning of an ancient dream, located on the coast of the Tyrrhenian Sea, near modern-day Nepal. Bai was not a place of industry or defense. It was a city of pure, unapologetic hedonism, known as the Las Vegas of the Roman Empire. It was the ultimate playground for the most powerful and dangerous finger in history. Here, empires like Nero, Caligula, and Hadrian built sprawling seaside villas where the marble was imported from across the world and the wind flowed as freely as the nearby volcanic hot spring. In its prime, Bai was a masterpiece of luxury, a sun-drenched sanctuary where the Roman elite came to escape the politics of the capital and indulged in every pleasure imaginable. However, the very thing that makes Bai a paradise is proximity to volcanic heat eventually became its undoing. The city was built on a geological power key through a process called breathtaking. The ground beneath the city began to slowly, almost imperceptibly, sink. This wasn't the sudden, fiery executions of Pompeii. It was a slow-motion surrender. Over centuries, the luxury villas, the honest penthouse, and the statues of the god were gradually claimed by the rising tide. To dive into Bai today is to witness a profoundly beautiful melancholy, a world where the highest peak of human vanity has been perfectly preserved in the watery, emerald tinted tomb. The atmosphere of Sunken Bay is one of ghostly luxury. As you swim through the underwater archaeological park, you find yourself hovering over sprawling mosaic that once decorated the floor and imperial bedroom. The geometric pattern, still vivid under the sea moss, are now the playground for schools of small fish. Perhaps the most iconic site is the Nymphaeum of Imperial Claudius, where a copy of the Origin statue stand in their origins positions, deep underwater, seeing the white marble fingers staring through the shimmering blue light. Their hand reaches out to a world that no longer exists, created a sense of haunting sorrow. It is as if the party never truly ended, it just moved beneath the wave, where the guests were turned to stone and the music was replayed by the silence of the abyss. There is a unique grandeur in how Bai has evaporated into the sea. Unlike ruins on land that are scavenged for their stone of weather by the wind, the, the Mediterranean has acted as a protective shield. They salt and sand have pickled the Rome lifestyle, keeping the intricate detail of their decadence intact. Yet, there is an undeniable, a heavy, lingering sadness in seeing such immense world repurposed by nature. The grand arches that one echoed with the laughter of imperial are now crusted with pinnacle, and the private harbor where golden galley once docked are now home only to silence. Today, Bai stands as a masterpiece of ancient existence that serves as a modern warning. It reminds us that even the most powerful empire in history could not negotiate with the earth beneath its feet. It is a city that didn't just fall, it slipped into a dream, leaving behind a silent, submerged gallery of marble and memory. Bai is the ultimate testament to the fact that while humans may build for the moment, the oceans built for eternity, turning our greatest monument into beautiful, blue-tinted ghosts. If the other ruins on our list felt like abandoned homes, the Yonaguni monument felt like an abandoned throne, carved for the king who vanished before history even began, resting off the southernmost tip of the Ryukyu Islands in Japan. This structure represents a mystery that is as monolithic as it is controversial. Unlike the sunken taverns of Port Royal or the clear streets a pile of pottery. Yonaguni does not give up its secret easily. It is a massive, sandstone complex staff terrace, sharp right angle, and towering wall that's raised from the seabed like a fortress built for giants. To dive here is to enter a world of staggering grandeur, where the sheer scale of the stone makes the human observer feel like a fleeting, insignificant speck against the backdrop of geology times. The atmosphere at Yanaguni is defined by a heavy, monolithic silence because the site is located in a region of powerful, treacherous oceanic current. There is a constant rhythmic pulse to the water that feels like the heartbeat of the earth itself. As you descend into the deep blue, the monument slowly materializes through the mist, a series of stages and terraces that look like a giant staircase leading into the abyss. There is a profound sense of in these stones, a brooding, lonely quality that comes from their isolations in the middle of the vast Pacific. Whether you are looking at the twin megaliths that stand perfectly by the bow of the turtle, a massive stone formation that looks like a sentinel guarding the deep, you are struck by a sense of intentionality that modern science still struggles to explain. This is where the mystery becomes a battleground for historians. If the Yonaguni monument is man-made, it would have to be over 10,000 years old, dating back to a time when this area was above sea level before the end of the last ice age. This would mean that a civilization capable of monumental masonry existed long before the race of Mesopotamia or Egypt, essentially evaporating from the historical record and leaving only the stone skeleton behind. There is a haunting sorrow in this possibility. The idea of a lost tribe, a master builder whose entire legacy was drowned by the rising meltwater of a warming world. However, many geologists argue that the monument is a freak of nature, the result of tectonic activity and the natural fracturing of sandstones. Yet, when you stand before the face, a massive stone profile with what appear to be eyes and a mouth carved into the rock, it's become difficult to believe that nature alone could be so poetic or so cruel. The grandeur of Yonaguni lies in this very ambiguity. It is a masterpiece of impossible, a site that sits on the edge of myth and reality. Even if it is a natural formation, its beauty is undeniably it is a silence, stern echo of a world that existed before we have a name for it. The sharp edges are now softened by sea moss, and the staircase leads to no doors, only into the dark, crushing pressure of the deep. It reminds us that there are parts of our planet that remain completely others, place where the rule of the surface do not apply and where the ocean has built a monument to its own crushing power. Today, the Yonaguni monument remains a silent, stern challenge to our understanding of the past. It is the pyramids of the Pacific, a place where the water is cold and the history is buried under layers of silt and skepticism. It stands as a reminder that the ocean is the ultimate well, a place where the grandeur of the earth is preserved in a watery, blue-tinted sanctuary forever out of reach of our certainly. It is a place of shadow and stone, a haunting witness to the time when the mountain first met the sea and decided to stay there forever. If you stand on the bustling modern cornice of Alexandria today, looking out over sparkling Mediterranean, you are gazing directly at the kingdom of shadows, just a few hundred meters from the shore. Buried beneath the dark silt and the harbor industrial debris lies the island for Antirotus. This was one the private sanctuary of the most famous women in history, Cleopatra VII. While the world remembers her through the lens of Hollywood or a dramatic page of Roman history, the physical reality of her life, her halls of power, her temple to Iris, and the very ground she worked urban has been evaporated into the mud of the sea for over 2,600 years. To explore Antirotus is to experience a deep, imperial melancholy, a world where the highest peak of the ancient elegance has been reduced to a silent, lilac graveyard. The atmosphere of Sunken Antirotus is one of tragic, suffocating, unlike the clear, sun-drenched water of the Aegean. The harbor of Alexandria is thick with sediment, creating a perpetual twilight. As you descend, the modern world disappears, and out of the green gloom, the artifact of the Ptolemaic dynasty begin to emerge like ghosts. You are met by massive red granite columns that once supported the place where Cleopatra hosted Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. There is a haunting beauty in seeing a colossal stone sphinx, its face still regal and indestructible, sitting upright in the mud as if it's in steel, guarding a queen who left her throne centuries ago. These are not just ruins, they are the fragments of a sovereign life, now draped in sea moss and surrounded by the cold, heavy pressure of the depth. The sense of sorrowful irony at Antirotus is overwhelming. Here was a queen who captivated the most powerful man in the world, a woman whose name became synonymous with divine luxury and political genius. Yet her royal residence was not destroyed by an invading army or the fires of the world. It was simply pulled down by the earth itself. A series of cataclysmic earthquakes and tsunamis in the 4th and 8th centuries caused the island to tip and slide into the harbor. The grandeur was not lost to time so much as it was swallowed by the sea, which acted as both a destroyer and a preserver. Today, archaeologists find delicate jewelry, personal comb, and ritual items lying in the same mud as massive statue of the god Happy, creating a poignant contrast between the intimate detail of a woman's life and the heavy weight of empire fall. There is a unique grandeur in this decay. The palace of Antirotus stands as a silent masterpiece of historical point of view. Above the wave, the city of Alexandria is a noisy, chaotic tapestry of modern life. But just beneath the surface, the silence is absolute. It is as if the sea has created a private, watery sanctuary where the memory of Cleopatra can remain undisturbed. by the tourists and the traffic. It is a place of profound isolation, where the statue of God and the foundations of temple are slowly becoming one with the seabed. It reminds us that even the most legendary figure in history eventually have to surrender to the tide, leaving behind nothing but storm whisper in the dark. Today, Antirodas remains a phantom island, a place that exists only for those brave enough to brave the dark water and the shifting mud. It is the ultimate testament to the fragility of fame and the cold. Undulating power of the ocean, Cleopatra Palace is not just a ruin, it is a melancholic poem in stones, a reminder that even the most brilliant light can be extinguished by the sea, leaving behind a silence that is vast as vast the history it hides. In the sacred text of Mahabharata, the city of Dwarka was described as a simmering masterpiece of gold and precious stones, a divine metropolis that rose from a wave at the command of Lord Krishna himself. For thousands of years, this city of the god was dismissed by the modern world as a beautiful piece of religious poetry, a celestial metaphor for the lost spiritual age that existed only in the imaginations of the faithful. But in the 1980s, the myth suddenly found its footing in reality when marine archaeologists discovered massive stone wall, anchors, and geometric structure lying 40 meters beneath the Abradyan Sea off the coast of Gujarat. This was no longer just a story, it was a physical, stern witness to a civilization that has evaporated from the surface and into the crushing embrace of the deep. To witness Dracula today is to stand at the intersections of legends and history, a place where the grandeur of the god is slowly being dissolved by the sword and the silence. The atmosphere of the Sunken Dracula is defined by a sense of ancient sacred at such great depth. The sunlight is filtered into a dim, ghostly blue, and the pressure of the water felt like the weight of thousands of years pressure against their chest. Out of the darkness emerged massive stone block, some weighing several tons, laid out in the precise grid that suggests a level of urban planning far beyond its era. There is a profound melancholy in seeing the great rampart, once intended to protect a city or legend, now home only to a slow movement of current and the silent grow of coral. You can see the remnant of huge sandstone pillar and the weather remain of what appeared to be bastion and watchtower. Standing like skeletal sentinel in the abyss, it is a city that feels as if it's holding its breath, waiting for the king who will never return, creating a sense of haunting isolation that is almost physically in its intensity. The mystery of Dracula Falls is as poetic as its creation. According to the ancient text, the oceans roared to swallow the city the moment Krishna left the earthly plane, as if the land itself could not bear to exist without his presence, while scientific evidence suggests a more geological reality, perhaps a sudden rise in sea level at the end of the last ice age. The sorrowful beauty of the site remained the same. The grandeur of Dracula is not in the gold that has long since vanished, but is in survival against the relentless tide of time. It is a masterpiece of mythic engineering, a sight that forced us to question how much of our legends are actually the distant, distorted memories of a lost world. In the cold, dark silence of the Gulf of combat, the ruins of Draka serve as a reminder that even the most divine creations are subject to the law of the sea, leaving behind a blue-tinted ghost of a kingdom that once challenged the heavens. Today, Drucker remains a silent gallery of devotions and stone, a place where the prayer of millions are anchored to the seabed. It is the ultimate testament to the idea that what is lost is never truly gone. It is simply waiting in the depth. The city is a melancholic whisper from a forgotten era, a reminder that underneath the wave of our current reality lie the foundations of everything we used to believe in. It is a place of shadow and sacred stone. Its haunting witness to the moment when the golden age of man slipped into the dark, leaving us to look at the surface and wonder what other wonders are sleeping beneath our feet. If Draka is a city of sunlight and golden mist, then Phanagoria is its dark, northern shadow, a place where the grandeur of ancient Greece meets the frigid, brooding depth of the Black Sea. Located off the Taman Peninsula in Russia, Phanagoria was once a sprawling, wealthy capital, a vital crossroad between the sophisticated world of the Mediterranean and the winged, nomadic tribe on the earth. For over 15th century, it thrived as a beacon of trade and culture. But today, one-third of this imperial giant lies submerged beneath a murky, green-tinted shroud of split and salt. To descend into the water is to experience a heavy, northern melancholy, a world where the elegant marble of the Greek has been reclaimed by the sea that is as cold as it is unforgiving. The atmosphere of Sunken Vanagori is defined by a somber leaden. Unlike the crystal clear water of the tropic, the Black Sea is often dark and unpredictable, creating an environment where the runes don't just sit in the water, they haunt it. Out of the gloom emerge the foundations of massive defensive wall and skeletal remain an ancient harbor pier that's one welcome shift from across the known world. There's a profound sorrow in seeing the remnant of a bustling port city now utterly silent, where the only movement is the slow drift of sediment over the stone. Perhaps most striker in the underwater necropolis, Phanagoria is the city where the living and the dead were drawn together. Seeing on a stone sarcophagi and burial markers sitting in a dark mood, their inscriptions slowly being erased by the tide, create a sense of secret isolation that is both beautiful and terrifying. The fall of Phanagoria was not a sudden explosion of violence, but a slow, inevitable surrender to a geological phenomenon known as the Phanagorian transgression. Over hundreds of years, the sea level rose, and the ground began to give way, causing the lower district of the city to slip into the blue of history. This slow-motion drawing has created a haunting masterpiece of preservation. Because the Black Sea bottom layer are often devoid of oxygen. The water acts as a cold, dark vault protecting wood, leather, and even ancient metal from a lot of time. Archaeologists have pulled stunning bronze artifacts and perfectly preserved pottery from the sea. Items that look at through they were dropped only yesterday. Yet these preservations only add to the of the site. It felt like a city that is not quite dead, but trapped in the perpetual state of running, a ghost of an empire that refused to fully disappear. Today, Fanagori stands at a silent, submerged witness to a shifting boundary of our world. It is the island state of the north, a place where the grandeur of the Prosperian kingdom has been repurposed by the deep. It reminds us that even the most fortified capital are ultimately just temporary guests on the land. The ruins of Phanagoria are a melancholic poem written in stone and seed, a reminder that the ocean is the ultimate historian, holding the story we have forgotten in its dark, cold embassy. It is a play of shadow and monotony, a haunting witness to the moment when the pride of man was finally silenced by the raging, restless spirit of the sea. While most of the wonders on our list have been hidden for centuries, the story of Villa Abequans is a raw, recent wound in the earth memory. Located south of Buenos Aires, this was once a bustling, sun-drenched resort town famous for the therapeutic, salt heavy water of Lake Abequan, a lake so mineral rich it was said to rival the Dead Sea. 40K. It was a place of vibrant laughter and holiday grandeur, a destination where thousands came to heal their body and celebrate their lives. But in November 1985, after a season of unprecedented rain, a massive earthen dam protecting the town finally collapsed. In a matter of days, the entire town was swallowed by the rising, salty tide. Villa Abercorn didn't just sink, it vanished under 10 meters of water, becoming a modern-day Atlantic that the world quickly forgot. But then, decades later, something impossible happened. The city began to breathe again. In 2009, due to shifting climate patterns, the water started to recede. The Villa Epiquan slowly rolled from its watering grave like skeletal ghost. To walk through this town today is to witness a masterpiece of post-apocalyptic, a world where everything has been turned into a born white, salt encrusted ruin. This is not the ancient mystery of stone and moss. This is the staggering, stark melancholy of the world that was alive just yesterday, now bleached white by the very salt that one brought people here to heal. The atmosphere of the immersed Villa Evergrande is defined by a surreal, blinding stillness. The start has acted as both a destroyer and terrifying artist, cutting very surface in a thick, white crush. As you wander through the room, you see rows of dead trees that look like petrified claw rich in a sky they haven't seen in 25 years. There is a profound sorrow in seeing the skeletal remain of a grand hotel, its staircase leading to rooms that no longer exist, all rusted. whitewashed frame of a car that was once someone's pride and joy. The ground is a crunching carpet of salt and sorrowed glass, and the air carrying a heavy, crystalline silence. In the place of absolute isolation, where the grandeur of the resort has been replaced by a haunting, snowy landscape that never melts. What makes Villa Abercrombie so unique is the fact that it is a city of half-life. Undercity lost to the deep sea, this town is caught in a state of perpetual drowning and the re-emergency. It is the place where the memories are still fresh, where the former resident can still walk through the ruin and point to where their bedroom used to be. This creates a bridge of aching longing between the past and the present, a reminder that the oceans doesn't just take land, it takes the context of our life. The grandeur here is found in tower defiance, in the way its white ruins stand out against the blue sky at a silent, salt cake witness to the power of the time. Today, Villa Abercrombie stands as a haunting masterpiece of modern ruin, a place that's evaporated into the lake only to return as warning. It reminds us that our control over element is an illusion, and that the water always remembers what is one own. It is a city of salt and shadow, a white ghost in the Argentinian sun that tells a story of loss so pure it has been bleached of all color. It is the ultimate testament to the idea that something, even when they return from the deep, can never truly come back to life. For over 1,000 years, the name Thonis-Heracleion was little more than a whisper on the wind, a ghost story mentioned by ancient historians but doubted by modern scientists who could find no trace of its extinction. It was the Golden Gate of Egypt, the majestic port city where the Nile meets the Mediterranean, serving as the essential gateway for the old trade between the land of the Pharaoh and the world of the Greek. This was a city of staggering grandeur, dominated by the great temple of Amun-Gebet, and filled with massive 16-foot tall stone deity that stood as internal sentinel over the harbor. But in the 8th century AD, the very edge beneath this empire of stone seemingly gave way. Through a terrifying combination of earthquake and solid liquefaction, the entire city slid into the sea in a single, catastrophic echo, evaporating from the map and from human memory for over 1,200 years. When marine archaeologists finally rediscovered the site in year 2000, they didn't find a scattered ruin. They found a city that has been perfectly preserved by the very mud that has claimed it. To dive into the water of Albuquerque Bay today is to enter a world of profound, sacred melancholy. Out the dark, emerged mist of the Mediterranean, the massive stone gods of Egypt slowly materialized, still standing upright on a seabed, as if they are waiting for a religious procession that ended a millennium ago. There is a haunting beauty in seeing the colossal statue of the god Happy, the personifications of the night abundance, lying in the dark silence, surrounded by thousands of gold coins that sparkle in the still like fallen star. This is wealth that can never be spent, and power can has been utterly silent by the weight of the water. The site is masterpiece of frozen history that evoke a sense of arcing surreal. You can see the remain of over 60 shipwreck. Their wooden hulls now part of seafloor, and hundreds of stone anchors that tell the story of a port that was only the loudest, busiest place in the world. But now, the silence in absolute, there is a deeply moving isolation in seeing the personal item of the citizens, tiny bronze votive statues, intricate jewelry, and simple ceramic bowl, scattered among the monumental wreckage of temples. It remained that Thonis-Heracleion wasn't just a political and economic hub. It was the living, breathtaking home and grandeur of stone gods it tempered by the human vulnerability of the silt-covered street, creating an atmosphere that is as heavy as the ocean itself. Thonis-Heracleion stands today as the ultimate testament to the sea role as the world's most powerful vote. It didn't just grow, it just achieved. The city served as a haunting masterpiece of historical reflection, showing us that even the most fortified, prosperous, and vital center of human civilizations can slip into the blue in a matter of hours. It is the golden gate that now leads to nowhere, a place of shadow and salt water where the gods of Egypt continue to rule over a kingdom of sand. It is a reminder that while we build our monument to last forever, the ocean is the only one that truly has the final word, holding our greatest treasure in its cold, blue embrace until we are finally ready to listen to their story.